Hi everybody, you're listening to the Khandaan podcast by the You Podcast team, a bi-weekly podcast revisiting the movies of Amir Khan, Salman Khan and Shahrukh Khan.
Every show we pick a random year from 3 decades of collectively 300 films the Khans have done and let our listeners vote which movie we should talk about. So it's entirely up to you.
Pick a team, make a vote, take us down nostalgia lane, punish us, or make us reassess a movie we dismissed.
We love the Khans, most of us, sometimes. And we would love for you all to be part of our Khandaan, because when it comes to the Khans in Bollywood, nothing else really matters.
So, Nim, welcome to the show. You're on Twitter, you're at Maple Brownie, and you're a friend of all of us. So happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be on with you guys as well. This has been something it's been a bit of a dream of mine for the last year. Not gonna lie, every time I listen to the podcast, I'm like, I have 10 things I need to add, if not 20, to what you're talking about. So hopefully this time we'll get that done.
Yeah. So bringing you on Khandaan is kind of our Eid to you, you know. So Eid Mubarak to all of our listeners.
Eid Mubarak, Eid Mubarak.
What are we talking about, guys? I think, Okay, this week we're basically talking about Pardes, and this was, Nim, you picked this movie and you dropped us an email and you were like, if you ever want to do this movie, I have lots of thoughts, right? That's how it happened. And then we said, let's do Pardes. We haven't seen that one in a long, long time.
Yes.
But then Sujoy figured out that Pardes is not to be found anywhere, which became kind of an issue, right?
Yeah, and then YouTube had the most cheap quality I've ever seen of YouTube qualities.
Yeah.
Which was not
fun. So I think what happened was Z5, when it launched in India, they got the rights to stream, because I think the music is now been acquired by Z5. I don't know what happened with tips, but so that's why it's all gone to Z5, and Z5 is a completely different platform that I don't know. I don't feel like paying another subscription to stream that. But I got a friend's login and I was able to stream the Pardes fine here. And Asim, did you manage to rewatch the movie?
I watched it in Malaysian.
What?
Nice.
I watched it on YouTube in Malaysian. That's how I did it.
That's wow. I found a decent quality one that, I mean, it wasn't HD by any means, but at least it was the entire movie without any subtitles or anything. So it was decent. I got through it.
Amrita, I can't imagine you went through any of that effort to rewatch this movie.
No. How well you know me.
I do know you really.
Backbenchers for life.
I mean, there's so many things happening right now. There's just the fact that this is Pardes, the fact that it's hard to find, the fact that I'd have to go on Z5. There's so many different things that are happening. So I just went to YouTube and I found there was some pirated copy, which is a really terrible print, but it did the job, so that's what I did.
Oh, okay. So you did rewatch it. I thought you were just I'll go by memory. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, rewatch is a bit of an overstatement and an exaggeration to what I did, but I made the effort. I made the effort for all of you because I love you so much.
Aww.
So, but what else are we talking about? Actually, we didn't even agree this time. No, I think these last 2 weeks have been so crazy. Usually you have some bullet points and things like that. So I think this might be a bit more a random episode. Did you guys... the first thing is that's coming up in my mind is... did you guys watch the Gulabo Sitabo trailer? I think that's...
I did.
What did you think, Nim?
Yes. I had to watch it twice, because the first time I watched it, I was like, I can't even understand half of the actual dialogues, because it was quite quiet and there's a different dialect that they're using at times, and I was like, what is going on here? So then this morning, because I was like, I'm sure it's gonna come up, I rewatched it, and truthfully, I'm not as excited as I thought I would be, because now that I know what the premise of the movie is, I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch 2 hours of this.
Honest reviews.
It's true though. Like, I mean, I'm a fan of Ayushmann Khurrana, but this is, I mean, his like middle class like little shtick is getting a little old for me now. And this time, this whole like him going against his landlord and the whole like Haveli background, I'm like, 2 hours of this, unless the dialogues are like kadak, like, you know, that's gonna really get to you, I'm like, do I really want to see them fighting out, like, you know, going back and forth and going to the court over this? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Nim. Like, and also like that ridiculous getup that Amitabh Bachchan is in. Like,
Right?
it just, I'm just like,
He looks like
what?
a troll.
Yeah, he does. I just kept thinking like garden gnome the entire time. Like, I was like, what? And then it turned out, like, I was on Twitter the other day and it turned out that there is an actual person in Old Delhi who looks like that. Do you guys know that account called Dilliwala? Like, he's Mayank Austin Sufi. He's pretty cringe. And he takes all these, it's sort of like Humans of New York, except like cringe. And then like of late, like all he does is like take photos of famous people and like pretend that he's their friend. So he went to like Old Delhi or something and he took a photo of some old man. I hope he had permission, but you know, he took a photo and it looks like he put up like a side-by-side comparison and it looks exactly like down to like, you know, that muffler over his head, like everything, like even the nose, you know, that fake nose that Bachchan has in the movie, even that is from this guy. Like, it was like insane. So yeah.
But did you guys watch the trailer launch though?
No, I didn't watch the trailer launch.
What happened in the trailer launch?
Yeah.
It's basically a Zoom meeting between Amitabh Bachchan and Ayushmann Khurrana trying to launch the trailer. It was pretty cringe.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So is the account called Dilliwala? Is that what it's called?
So I think, so I say Delhi, but it's like Delhi wala.
Yeah, Delhiwala.
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's
Yeah, clearly, you know what his permission was to take pictures? It's probably like, tu janta nahi mera baap kaun hai? That's his permission he took. Oh, God. What did you think of the trailer?
I mean, Ayushmann is in his like zone again, doing the same thing. But I have a little bit more faith because this is he started off his career with Shujit and Juhi Chaturvedi, who's written this movie, and they are coming back. The whole team is coming back, and Piku was also written by these two, and so Bachchan is back in this movie. So I am a bit more optimistic than you guys, but again, that nose is troubling me. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. You know?
But also, like, I just want to say something about like the whole Shujit Sarkar thing that I'd forgotten until Sujoy mentioned, which is that I hated Amitabh Bachchan in Piku. Like, he was so annoying.
He was annoying.
He was so annoying, like incredibly annoying. Like, everything about him was like on my nerves. Yeah. So I don't know. I think like there's like, we've talked about this before. There's like an entire generation of filmmakers who can't believe their luck that they have like Amitabh Bachchan in their film. And so they just let him do like whatever. And then like it's just, he just dials it up to like this, because he's a good actor, obviously. Like, I'm not ever going to argue that point, but he does need, he's like Shahrukh, you know, he needs like that lightest of fingers on that one nerve so that he can dial it to like a manageable level.
I don't know. I really found him like his Piku character was, even though it was like a hyper bong uncle, but that's how bong uncles are to me. So, you know. I thought he was pretty on point.
I would say I'm arguably the biggest Amitabh fan out of all of us, and I don't want to see this Amitabh. I don't enjoy seeing him as Piku. I don't enjoy seeing him as Gulabo Sitabo. So if you're just like, you know, taking away like a huge fandom of Amitabh, not in the way that I still want to see him as, you know, Vijay Dinanath Chauhan or beating up people, but like I don't want to see Amitabh like decrepit old man, and like they also seem to have like shortened him. Like there's no way Ayushmann Khurrana is taller than.
He's like hunched over.
Yeah, he's hunched over, right? Yeah,
physically.
And it's like, you know, taking away all the things that we love about Amitabh, covering him on makeup, an accent like you, Nim, that I did not understand. I didn't understand what they were saying. And is that a Delhi accent, or is that like a specific accent that I don't understand? But anyway,
I don't even.
And more like I am so done with Ayushmann's movies. Like generally, like I physically groan when I see his face. I was like, dear Lord, and
he needs to do something different for sure.
Yeah, he's boring me so much. Like it's insane. Like it's worse than how I felt after watching 35 Marvel movies. Like I'm so done with his shtick, you know. Yeah, it's not working for me. Like last one I liked was Article 15 because it was slightly different. But now he's back into this dream girl, Vicky Donor zone, which I don't like. And I don't like when he's also playing an asshole, like when he did in Vicky Donor. I just or in Dam Laga Ke Haisha. I don't like that character when he plays it. I like it when he's a nicer guy. I don't like this guy he's playing. So I'm not excited for this, but घर पे बैठे हैं, free में आ रही है, we'll watch it probably, right? And hashtag content.
It's true.
We need to review it. So they basically have us as like a hostage, right? So like we're chained to our couches. So, you know, like this is the moment we will watch this. What else can we do, you know?
Yeah. And I do think that I'm sure that the producers were like, you know what, waiting for the theatrical release of this movie is not going to be worth it because the hype will die down by then. Yeah. It's way better to recoup the money this way because I don't think it would have sustained in a theater release.
Yeah, producer was like, Bal bach gaye, you know, like we saved our eyes here.
And Inox is fighting over this movie?
Yeah,
exactly.
But Sujoy, I have not seen any statement after they saw the trailer. So they were like, oh, okay, hum bhi bach gaye, you know, like, phew, let it go, guys. You can have this one, Amazon.
I would still like to be proved wrong. I'm still hopeful for Shujit and Juhi Chaturvedi, mostly more than Ayushmann and Amitabh Bachchan in that makeup. But let's see how things plan out.
Yeah. What else was out? I think there's a few Netflix things coming out soon. I think Betal and Choked. I watched the trailers. None of those none of it interests me.
No, I was just gonna say, did you guys hear about What Are the Odds?
No, what is that?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh yeah, the Abhay Deol movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of smaller, like I've seen these actors around and I don't even remember where I've seen them, but they're like, you know, Jane Pehchane faces and they're small time people, and there's this, it's like a movie, I think, or show. I couldn't get the premise of it, but all I know is Abhay Deol was hyping it up over the last 2 weeks and then nothing afterwards. So I was like, did it just bomb?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
when is it?
It's on Netflix.
When did it even come out?
Netflix.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's why I was like, no one's heard. Like, I saw it for like the first 2 weeks. I was like, I'm sure people will start talking about it. And then no one talked about it afterwards. I was like, did it just come and go and no one even realized it was on?
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Netflix is at that point where somebody needs to get fired. Like somebody in a high position in Netflix India needs to get fired now. Like how much can we take, you know? And again, I have residual anger because I saw Mrs. Serial Killer the week before. So I feel the hate a little bit more, but like I'm seeing Choked and I'm seeing Betal and I'm seeing, you know, What Are the Odds? And it's like, what are you guys doing? You know, like how, like this is just all nonsense. Like none of it. And even like I see a lot of trade analysts are talking about it that, you know, Amazon Prime is way ahead in terms of content that they're delivering, right? And it's not looking good. Like I mean, we just finished Patal Lok, and it's such. And then What Are the Odds? And again, I think you guys didn't watch Chopsticks, the last Netflix movie with Abhay Deol, right?
I did.
You did?
I did.
How much did you hate it?
I watched it in Berlin. I was in Germany at the time, and it was such a boring movie that I ended up having it in the background while I was just doing my, like, you know, ironing and getting my clothes ready for, like, the day sort of a deal, because I couldn't bother to sit down and watch it because it wasn't interesting enough. But I was like, but it's Abhay Deol, I need to support him, right? Because he's like one of my favorite, like, Deol actors. But I was quite disappointed because this guy has actual range for acting, and I don't know why he's not choosing projects to, like, actually further his career. And at this point, like, the whole what are the odds thing, I was quite disappointed that, you know, again, it was going on like a streaming platform, and it's not even got that hype behind it. Like, just it's sad, I feel like, for him right now.
So,
like, I just don't get it.
So I just realized that he was actually in the movie and he wasn't just hyping it. Like,
no, exactly. He plays a character.
So I feel bad for him also, and I would also like to support him, but also I feel like at a point, I can't, like, you can't be so bad at your one job, which is, like, you know, like acting or like choosing projects to act in. Like, you can't be so bad at it that I, as your audience, have to make, like, an effort out of pity to, like, be like, I have to support your character. Like, the way that you were saying it, I have felt that impulse also for, like, various people. And as I get older, I'm just like, you know what? Like, you have to make some effort also. Like, I can't always do this for you. Like, I can't spend hours of my life watching, like, horrible things unless you try and do something good once in a while. So, sorry, Abhay Deol, but I'm not, like, I just can't do it.
Yeah. Anything else that I think it's been a quite slow week, right? News-wise? I don't think if any trailer, any news we missed out?
No. And this is the thing. I'm like a huge Bolly freak. Like, every day I have, like, my websites that I go and check out to be like, what's the latest? And everything is so quiet right now that they're doing, like, throwbacks and, like, throwback Thursdays and, like, in the past, remember when? And I'm like, there's nothing happening. This is so sad.
So I took the time, like, this past week to just watch the old Film Companion interviews with directors. Mm-hmm. So I've been watching, like, there's a series that they did where directors discuss their first film. So Zoya Akhtar talking about Luck by Chance, Dibakar Banerjee talking about Khosla Ka Ghosla, like, things like that. And it was really interesting just to see where they've reached since then and their perspective on their work now, and the way that each of them talks about being in the industry and the people that they've worked with. Like, it's so interesting to me because it's not that they're being gossipy or anything, but you can sort of read between the lines about a lot of things, and you're just like, oh, I did not know that was what was going on, or that's who this person is, you know? So it's a very, it's a pretty relaxing watch if people are looking for, like, filmy content, but they don't know, like, what to do.
That's really cool.
Although I am wondering, and I'll have to drop a message to Suchin, our friend, can we, like, crowdsource some money to get them better mics? Because I feel Anupama Chopra is still working with a laptop mic, and I cannot hear what she's saying in a huge mansion she lives in. So I think...
Wow.
Yeah.
Burn. The burn from Bernie.
The Bernie burn.
All her money went into her mansion. Like, she doesn't have anything left over for audio equipment.
Yeah. Where did all that three idiot money go, man? Like, she can't buy, like, a decent mic. Oh, by the way, did you guys see that Mithun is launching his second son upon us?
Oh my God, yes.
He has a second son also.
He has a second son. I actually saw the photo, and my first reaction was, this is like the poor man version of Ali Zafar.
I think Ali Zafar is the poor man version of Ali Zafar.
तुम लोग सुधरोगे नहीं.
ईद पे भी नहीं छोड़ते.
कसम से. Tifa in trouble again.
His name is Namashi Chakraborty. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm going with Namashi, I think, at the moment.
The thing is, I don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the thing is that I don't actually know what his name is. So I'm just going by like Asim's pronunciation. So for all I know, he's called something entirely different. But now till my dying day, I'm just going to be like Namashi, whether or not that's his name.
You immediately know that I have mispronounced it, but you don't know how I mispronounced it.
Sorry, Sujoy, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, I was looking at the 4 months ago, Amazon India kind of did that trailer with all the original Indian shows that are coming this year. And they had like Forgotten Army by Kabir Khan, which released and went nowhere. But then Patal Lok came. And then there's a couple of more shows that they've got in their roster. And there's like Government and Delhi. And then there's a show by Nikhil Advani, which I'm not hopeful about. Called Mumbai Diaries.
Oh God!
But I feel like Amazon does it's been doing a better job, at least of late, of
definitely better
of like promoting their content. We're looking at content that's coming out that has had that must have been approved at least 2 years ago. So the slate that's coming out now is like from back then. So whoever did that back then must have really known what they were doing. But for a while there, like I know we were talking about how like neither Netflix nor Prime does a good job promoting their Indian content. And I still feel like Netflix could like cross promote their content a lot more, and they could do it in different markets, and I don't understand why they don't do that. But Netflix doesn't even promote their content in India, which is like, what are you making all this content for then, like if you don't want us to watch it? So I don't get it.
Yeah, maybe the promotional team watches the content and say like, "Humse nahi ho payega."
Like, let's just let it slide.
We can't do anything with chopsticks. Like, what do you want us to do? Like, yeah, somebody needs to get fired. Like, I'm gonna remain on that. Yeah. No, but the good thing about Namashi's debut is that it's gonna be directed by Rajkumar Santoshi. But the bad thing is that it's...
Wow. There's a name from the past.
I know.
Yeah, but he always, like, it's exciting. Like, his movie is always, like, I'm, like, looking forward to them. Always something good in them. But the movie is called Bad Boy, which is then, again, the negative. Like, that's a terrible name for a title. And then the unveiling of Bad Boy's first look poster happened through Salman Khan, which is also a terrible...
What?
Like, the people that Salman has launched upon us has been terrible. So, Namashi, I hope your career is long enough that I can learn to pronounce your name correctly. That's what I hope for you.
What's the name of his other son? Like Mimo? Mimo.
I thought it was...
No, Mahakshay.
Oh, Mahakshay.
Mahakshay. Okay.
Moving on.
I think we're done with this one.
Like we did from Mimo in real life.
We tried, guys. This is what we can do.
Like Asim, you really need to watch Jimmy. You need to watch Jimmy and appreciate how terrible it is.
I did see his dancing with the... Like, what was the hair, man? Yeah. Anyway, like, he's trying to... Is he trying to make a comeback? No. Zayed Khan is trying to make a comeback. I saw that news.
That
news. Sanjay Khan is relaunching.
Relaunching him as a war hero, nonetheless. War hero.
So Pitu Sultan sent me that, I think she posted it on her IG or something, and I just started laughing because I thought, like, what year is this? And then it had this amazing quote by his dad, Sanjay Khan, who was like, he's one of the most handsome men in Bollywood today with so much charisma. Like, he deserves to have a second innings. And I was like, who? Who are we talking about? Are we talking about Zayed? Like, what?
Yeah, since when was Zayed the most handsome man in Bollywood?
I have no idea. Has he looked at his ex-son-in-law? Like, what?
Yeah. Shall we move on to Pardes?
Yes.
Why not?
Why is it that like Asim's voice just changes when he says Pardes? Like he goes like blah 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 Pardes.
Pardes?
They see him comes out.
I'm drawing the line, right? Because, okay, I'm probably gonna get into this in the review because this movie, I feel, is targeting me, and this movie is a hate crime to me personally. Like, am I Rajiv in this equation, Subhash Ghai? Like, is that what you're
Kishori Lal.
Who am I? Or am I like that third one with the chashme, like the one that goes, yo? Like, which one am I? Am I Frankie? Guys, am I Frankie?
Pyar is to chill, man.
So, Nim, you wanted to talk about Pardes with us. Why? Why was this movie? You were watching this a couple of weeks or a month ago, right? And you thought, I have thoughts. Is that what was
I wasn't watching it as much as I came across it on like one of the songs, and I was like, oh yeah, like nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about it, and the thing is, one of the reasons why this movie is stuck with me so dearly, in a sense, you could say, is because when it was released, it was one of the few movies that actually did play in the theaters here in Edmonton. And I remember as like a 13-year-old, the time, like that summer of 97, we had a whole bunch of family come from like Winnipeg, Calgary, Vancouver. I don't remember exactly what was happening, but we had so much family. We made it a family outing. We took up 2 rows of the theater when we went to go see it. So it was like a bunch of kids, bunch of adults. And I remember like one group of like cousins from like Calgary that were here, and they watched it with us. But I didn't remember there's a second group that came from Winnipeg. And it was funny because I did an actual like Instagram, like, you know, kind of rewatch where I was posting as I was watching it. And then one of them messaged me and she's like, remember when we went with you guys to watch it in the theaters? I was like, you guys were here too? And so it was like one of those memories that, like, I have bits and pieces, but I do remember that a whole bunch of us went, we watched it, and it was hilarious because some of the guy cousins were dragged out and they were like pissed about coming out to this movie. But it was a movie that we enjoyed together as a group, and there were some moments where even now when I went back and I rewatched it again, I like laughed again because I was like, this is really weird, and why did he do it? But I was like, it would be nice to talk about because it's one of those interesting Shahrukh Khan movies where he's like, he's not the main person, right? Like he's there, but he's there more as a catalyst. And then, yeah, at the end he has a bit more, but throughout the movie, it's not his movie. So that's what kind of stuck out to me.
First of all, I just want to say that, you know, it's very sweet that you would have a memory like that and then you'd want to come here and like share it with us assholes. Like, that's really
Who are you talking about, Amrita? Who is the asshole here? Kitna nanna sa, pyara sa.
Yeah, Shakti Kapoor is probably our alter ego.
But yeah, I was pretty rowdy when I watched Pardes. Like, I watched it by fighting with the black ticket holders and like blood dripping on my forehead, and I was like idolizing Shahrukh Khan with all the blood. That was me.
What? You got into a fight to watch this movie?
Yeah, I even bunked my tuition class.
Rebel you.
I can't remember the first, like, how I watched the first time. Like, I can't remember, like, where or how. It's just one of those movies that everyone has seen, I feel.
Yeah, but
So
here,
the
the theater
singles-
thing here. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, for us, the big thing about the theater reason why it stuck out is because Edmonton was a very small Desi population back in, like, the 90s. And so we, honestly, the first movie that came to Edmonton that played on a big screen here was Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, which my mom went to watch. And I was so disappointed that I couldn't go watch it. And it was, like, the 4-hour-long version, too, that initially had come out. And then and so my mom was like so like, you know, buzzing because of like Madhuri and that, and I was so sad. And then the second one that came was DDLJ, and that one again I have some big memories because my sister came to that movie and she was a huge Shahrukh Khan fan and she cried when he was being beaten up at the end. So these movies, early 90s, like they really stuck out because they really didn't play here unless they were like the big movies. Right now it's different. In the last 10 years we have one theater that's particularly for multicultural films, and literally half of the movies are Punjabi and Hindi, like Bollywood films here. So we've kind of taken over that theater, and so it's not as big of a deal. But for me, a kid growing up in like the 90s, you know, in my teen years, it was huge to be able to go to the theater and see like, you know, a Desi movie.
So you're like basically who the Bollywood producers were targeting in the 90s.
Exactly. You know? That's why I had like, you know, such fond memories of Pardes at the time. Like, you know, when I was thinking back and then I watched it again, I was like, oh, this is problematic.
Shall I read you the other top 10 movies of that year that came out, just to kind of give a context of where we were cinematically at that time? So
I'll give you some context later.
Yeah. Number 10 was Deewana Mastana, then Judai, Koila, Hero Number 1, Ziddi, remember? Gupt,
Wow.
Pardes, Ishq, Border, and Dil To Pagal Hai. And we've done a few of these movies actually already on the podcast. We did Ishq and Dil To Pagal Hai, and now Pardes. So, and Koila we've already also done. Actually, we've done all the Khan movies of that year. So
wait, which was number one?
Dil To Pagal Hai.
Dil To Pagal Hai.
Achha.
So that's kind
Is
of
it sad to say that I've seen all the top 10? Like I've seen them all that year, like literally.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've seen them all. Yeah, why not? Like that's what we used to do. We used to all movies like this. There was no option.
There's no option.
Yeah.
Here's my context.
Your
though.
context, your context.
Yeah, so you were talking about Ziddi and all of that, but the cinema where I watched it, I come from a very small town in India. So the cinema where this played was infamous for playing like B-grade cinema, and the other movies running alongside Pardes for the morning show and the night show were Purani Haveli and Pyasi Padosan.
How were those movies though? Like how was Kya Purani Padosan? What is the movie?
Pyasi Padosan and Purani Haveli.
Acha, okay.
I love that you still remember what else was
Of course, those posters were. Oh dear.
God. So I mean, this is clearly like Subhash Ghai seeing DDLJ, seeing movies like, you know, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and Subhash saying, "Main bhi karunga." You know, like this is what Pardes is, right?
Mala paije.
And clearly, this feels very much inspired from some family trip Subhash Ghai did to go visit his brother or something like that, and brother just being totally disappointed. Like, we have achieved so much in life, yet we are still failures, which is an actual line in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, this movie made me feel so bad and terrible. like
Right?
like actively. And I remember having fond memories for this movie. Like, it came out when I was like 17, 18, something like that. And I think at that time I was struggling with my cultural identity, you know, where am I, you know, am I this, am I that? And this movie kind of came in, and I was like, oh, there is an option. If we need to, we just need to import a woman that is the embodiment of our home country. You know, we just bring her in, and it's gonna like erase all of our mistakes, right? Because we're smoking and dancing and, you know, having sex and assaulting women, right? Because that's what we do. Because we're all basically.
तुम्हें तो पता है मुझे singing और dancing का कितना शौक है.
So basically, like, he made Ram Lakhan and he had Debu from America, and he's like, let's go visit Debu. let's take India to Debu and see what's happening there with Debu. And then Debu is also a kabaddi player in this movie, so it's all like within the world of Subhash Ghai. And also this is also Subhash Ghai's NRI trilogy, which I hadn't thought of, which consists of Pardes, Tal and Yade. So clearly,
right. I forgot about Yade.
Yeah, which also
even Subhash Ghai wants to forget about it.
Yeah. And also, this is like the last size of Subhash Ghai as a successful filmmaker. Like this and Tal.
Yeah.
Tal I never got with. Like I don't get the love for Tal at all. And a lot of people love that movie. I just have a total disconnect with it. I don't like it at all. So for me, he was, after Pardes, he was pretty much done for. And I think he made Kisna, Kanchi, and one more I think he made. Yuvraj. How could I forget Yuvraj?
Oh, wow. No.
Oh, dear Lord. One day we will be talking about Yuvraj on the podcast. I can feel it.
Yes.
I mean, it's a Khan movie, so yeah, it is. Obviously.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like
There's
to
not
say...
enough vodka for that movie, though.
So this, again, because this is like DDLJ mode, right? So you have like the same monologue from Amrish Puri, who is now a millionaire, Kishori Lal, and he's talking about mere Rome mein India. And I don't want to think about Amrish Puri's Rome. Like this, like... No. I don't like those two words together. I just have to say. But yeah, he's like speechifying to a lot of Gora people in front of the Taj Mahal how, love in India. Love in India is so give.
Only to give.
I also like that he gives that speech in front of the Taj, which is like what? Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
I think we've got the tagline for this movie, and it's the most Indian ever.
Yeah. Oh God.
I thought it would be give.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And, also, Aditya Narayan. Like, can I just say that?
Oh, God.
I hate that kid. I hate him so much. I hated him then, and I hate him even more now. Like, he's so annoying. And also, what does Sim Pola mean? What does it mean? Is that a language? What is Sim Pola?
I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find anything.
These are all stuff that Subhash Ghai comes up when he is like in his, he's dropping acid or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
And also, one more thing I realized. Sorry, I have lots of thoughts about this movie. Like, Subhash Ghai
I do too.
Subhash Ghai sabko topi kyun penata hai? There's always a moment where somebody's wearing a hat. Like, what is this? And a lot of times cowboy hats. Like, lots of some cowboy hats hiding behind hats. Like the whole... what was the song with...
Zara tasveer se.
Yeah, and he's like doing the whole thing with the hat. Like, what is going on? Like, anyway. Sorry. Sujoy, man, what were your thoughts on revisiting Pardes? Sorry, I'm just like jumping from one thing to the other.
I like that this review basically reflects how the movie is made, which is that it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
Like, my the first note that I've written down is Aditya Narayan is the anti-Jugal Hansraj.
Oh, that is true.
Wow.
Like, he just irritates me. Everything that's got to do with, kids in Bollywood. He just embodies that particular image, And also the intro scene of Ganga or Kusum Ganga, Mahima Chaudhary, right? That's such a stereotypical 80s, 90s trope of the motor mouth village belle. Uncle ji, आप अमेरिका से आए हैं, आपके पास सिर्फ $10 थी जब आप गए थे और आज आपके पास इतना सारा पैसा है.
It's like 18. Oh, no. The best part was आपके पास 18 बेटे हैं, 11
बेटियां हैं, इतने सारे सालियां हैं.
Yeah.
But where are those 18 kids? Doesn't he say Rajiv is his only child? Why are these 18 kids that he keeps talking about?
I have no clue.
Because I clearly wrote it
He's
down
like
in my
Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson.
No, because he clearly said about Shahrukh, he's my 18th son. And it's like, where are your 17 sons? Because there's only Rajiv. And he says, then Rajiv is my only son. So I didn't understand what the hell he's like gallivanting.
No, like foster children. Like that's what the whole thing is. Like, so he, like, that's why Shahrukh feels beholden to him and like,
he's like the Sudama.
Acting. He's basically like pimp, but fine. Sudama will also do.
Yeah. But also, like, the more I watch it, I also feel like, these Subhash Ghai is trying really, really hard to connect with youth, and he doesn't know shit about youth culture,
It's really is like a version of like, how do you do, fellow kids? Like that whole, it's that meme come to life. It really is.
It's like, what scene really sums that up? When Ganga is in America and they are having their reception party or something, and you see Apoorva Agnihotri dancing.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. That I felt like that was the worst diss this movie did, because we NRIs dance better than that. Like, I don't know what that, like, yes. I felt really insulting.
I was like, who dances like that?
Yeah. It was really, really bad.
I actually felt really bad for Apoorva Agnihotri. I mean, imagine being like, oh, I'm making my debut in a Subhash Ghai movie. And then this is the role that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. Yeah. I mean, that's just sad.
I think it kind of did set him up for like failure after this, because the poor guy's career just never could take off, right? So the only thing that saved him was the television. Because I think it was Jassi Koi Nahi that kind of brought him back into like the mindset of people.
Oh, he's still
and
acts?
Also
he's
like
still...
he does like Ekta Kapoor serials and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember like, sorry, I mean, we're just going away from the movie. But the thing is, like, the movie as such has no like, there's nothing cohesive about this movie. It's like it feels hollow in the middle, you know what I mean? Like emotionally as well as like,
generally when I was like, I watched it again with my mom, right? And she's like, this is supposed to be in Dehradun, right? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, why are there palm trees? She's like, I don't think Dehradun has palm trees. And it's like freaking Cape. And she's like, it's more of like a hilly kind of, because it's right close to the mountains. And she's like, this makes no sense. And then when you started to pay attention to the details of like the locations, I was like, okay, the locations don't even match up, because all of a sudden they're at some sort of river somehow, which was not even close to the house before. And that was like the India portion. And then when you went to Hollywood / LA, and then all of a sudden it was like when he, like, again, jumping around, but when he was told that he's moving to LA and they're supposed to be living in Hollywood, I was like, Hollywood is in LA. So again, this concept of cities and where things are did not make sense. By the way, as a Canadian, I'm proud to say that all of the locations that they filmed pretty much in their house and everything was actually Vancouver and not Hollywood, as they were saying. It was, and I remember this quite strongly at the time, because there was this gossip at the time. A Punjabi NRI actually allowed them to use his house that's in the British Properties area of Vancouver. So that house is an actual person's living quarters that they used. And all of that, the scene, the pans, that's all Vancouver. So just an FYI, guys.
That looks impressive.
I think the NRI Punjabi also wrote the script for this movie.
घर ले लो लेकिन script मैं लिखूंगा. But I remember tangentially, am I making this up? But like, was there a thing where like Apoorva and Shahrukh had like a bit of a attitude adjustment thing on sets, because Apoorva thought it was his movie and then Shahrukh was just like, what dude, like, I'm Shahrukh Khan. Was that a thing?
I've not heard of it, and that is like Vivek Oberoi level, craziness. If he thought that, like, that is like, wow, okay. But I mean, I don't think it did Apoorva any good, this movie, but I also don't think Mahima, like, revisiting, right? Like, the launch of a Subhash Ghai heroine was a big thing. Like almost after a Yash Raj heroine, you had like a Subhash Ghai heroine, right? It was a big thing.
Yeah.
And especially and I think Mahima was really like molded as a Madhuri. And for a moment, she was a contender, I feel. Like, there was a moment where, wow, and she looks great and stuff like that, but I really think she's ill-suited for this village girl that is, like, wholly Indian, because, I remember her from the days as a VJ, right? And she seems like a very kind of young, hip, kind of talkative, chatty, modern girl. And then you put her in, basically, saving her virginity kind of role. It just seemed like very like a odd choice to put her in the role of Ganga. What do you guys think about that?
I think, well, the name Ganga is clearly inspired from Madhuri as Ganga in Khalnayak. And Madhuri could still play the pants off this movie, if she was to play the Ganga. But again, ill-suited because this role was completely written in a stereotypical village belle, Subhash Ghai heroine mold. And she did the best she could. I think she was full of gratitude because she is the Subhash Ghai heroine here. But retrospectively, when we look at it, I think this is the biggest role that she's ever played, right?
Yes. Yes. And just
So
to add go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, from my perspective, I actually never saw her as a VJ, so I had no idea who this woman was before she came on. And I have to say, the Subhash Ghai did an amazing job of framing her in every, literally every frame. She looked gorgeous, especially the songs, right? Like, just the way he tried to spend so much time on her. But this was her biggest role. And I, as a young kid who was following all these actors, I was like, why is she not doing better than what she's like at? And I was like, you know what? And I think I was like 18, 19 when I rewatched Pardes at the time. And I was like, shit, she did the whole hitting the mirror thing. 7 years bad luck. I'm like, it has to be coming up soon that it's basically getting over it. But it never did. She just never could take off. And I was like, it was kind of sad in a way because she had the beauty and the glamour. But one of my friends was like, you know what, her voice really irritated me. She's like, every time I used to listen to her, she's like, to me it was like nails on the chalkboard. And I was like, you know what, that could be part of the whole why she didn't take off.
Yeah. I personally don't like Mahima at all. I don't like her as an actor. I don't like her acting. I don't like her acting choices. I don't like her voice. I don't like her accent. I don't like anything.
But tell us really, how do you feel about Mahima?
I think she's very pretty and Subhash Ghai. So Subhash Ghai has to be a little bit in love with all his heroines. I feel that's how that's how he shoots them. So
that's the kind of creep he is. That's the kind of creep he is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So what Nim is saying about him presenting her in a very beautiful way, that's true. He does do that. But this movie was actually written for Madhuri, and you can see from that, how the role is written. Because these are like Sujoy said, these are all beats that Mads would just knock right out of the park because it's stuff that's absolutely in her wheelhouse. But she didn't want to do it, maybe because Ghai is such a lech. And she said, no, I've had enough. Thanks.
Yeah, Khalnayak was the straw that broke the camel.
Yeah. So, it's kind of when you have something that is so tailored to one person and then another person comes, I feel like that's a mean trick to play on a debutant. Mahima just didn't have the kind of experience that she would have needed to step into that role and just do even halfway decent job that Madhuri could have done. And I think that really shows in this movie. She does the best she can, but especially with Shahrukh, she has no chemistry whatsoever with Shahrukh at all. So,
speaking about chemistry, their whole love story is not even explored correctly. No. When did they fall in love?
Yeah.
Well, I think it wasn't at the end the idea that she was like, I don't see him that way, and they're like, well, is jhoot ko sacha bana do, and it's all of a sudden she's supposed to turn the switch and be in love with him, right?
This whole family just instigated the romance. It was so fucked up.
I was like, what?
Yeah, this movie, like so many other Bollywood movies of that era, is basically about they see dads being terrible. Like they have no understanding of their own children. They have no understanding of their identity, and they're just projecting one thing on the other and then forcing their kids to just kind of like bear the weight. Amrish Puri is a terrible person in this movie. Like he's terrible to Shahrukh. He's terrible to his, like, he doesn't know his own son, and he's like horrible to Mahima. Like he knows what he's bringing her into, and he's putting that much of a burden. Like even that idea where like they're in America and he just puts her on stage in front of all of these people she doesn't know and it's like, ga beta ga, like, what is this, like, like, and then they sing the India song. By the way, how patriotic do you guys feel when I Love My India happens?
Oh god.
Does it like brings me like this is a movie that was released on the 50th anniversary of India's independence, and I think that was the plug.
Yeah.
Like they had to release it in time to match that occasion. But
I was like the first thing that came to mind when I was like the first couple of lines came, I was like, wow, there's like so much patriotic overtones. And it wasn't until the end when there's that line of like celebrating 50 years of I was like, oh, that's why this whole movie got like, pushed at this time. Basically it's to create that whole Indian sentiment of like, we're proud to be Indians and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done.
Again, like, I want to point out something. Mahima Chaudhary's IMDb page, the last movie that she was in was a movie called Dark Chocolate, and it is based on the Sheena Bora murder case with, the Peter Mukherjee and Rani Mukherjee murder case that was in the news a couple of years back, and it's a terrible, terrible movie. It's like bilingual in Bengali and Hindi, but it's so terrible.
But I think also
I've seen it.
Heard of it. Wow.
But she also got stuck because of that sting operation, right? Like she was she was taking money for political.
Banks.
Yeah, was that the Swiss bank thing or was that like political?
No, Swiss banks was before, and then the political I think came afterwards.
Yeah. So she got like on a hot mic or like a hidden cam. She got like she was gonna make like social media statements and promote the I think the BJP, and kind of like so she got caught with that, how much she was gonna charge and stuff like that. Which I don't understand, like what this big reveal is, like that the stars are taking money to do these things. I don't understand. I think this is like common knowledge and everybody should know this, but apparently this was a big scandal and she's not but I don't think
it is understood knowledge, but it was quite apparent on camera for somebody to do it. That was the big reveal.
I do wonder, because also like Amisha Patel got stuck in that one. It was the same one. I was like, how much influence do Amisha Patel and Mahima Chaudhary have? Yeah. But yeah, one idea that I did find interesting. I was reading this in, what was this book? I was it's called New Cosmopolitanism, South Asians in the UK by Geeta Rajan and Shelja Sharma. And they were kind of mentioning how this movie is not about political patriotism, but about cultural nationalism. And that I thought was kind of an interesting idea. And I also think that's where a shift has happened. Like, I think here, I do feel that the whole I Love My India idea is coming from a place of positivity. Overall, there is some sort of like misplaced, but there is some positivity about how the nationalism is played out. I don't feel it's attacking anybody, right? Whereas already, like if you compare it with K3G, the way the same scene is happening with Kajol and things like that, that is more already veering towards the political patriotism idea, right? There's
India is the best.
Yeah, there's a shift there, and I can almost appreciate the way Subhash Ghai is doing it. And honestly, Subhash Ghai has always been like this nationalist. Like all of his movies have been about like the idea of India, saving India.
Har karam apna karenge.
Yeah, even from
tere liye and all that, yeah.
Yeah, or even like his last one's black and white, even that, like, which I actually liked black and white. I don't think that was a bad movie. I think it was.
Wow, I completely forgot about that movie.
Yeah. I think that had some good ideas in there, and it was kind of like struggling with these ideas. But Dil Se had already done it, and they had already done it much better. So I think that's where he was missing out. And also, I Love My Hindi. India has the cameo, the Subhash Ghai cameo, which is also a big thing. Cringe. Mm-hmm. But I think, generally, I think the fondness of this movie is related to the music of this movie, right? And I think definitely. The songs still bang. Like, they're still actually quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amrita, what's your kind of like, what was the favorite song that you kind of revisited? Is it Jahan Piya Wahan Mein?
I almost spilled my coffee.
What is that song at the end? So I have to say, when I say I watched this movie for this podcast, I mean like I fast forwarded through it. Like that's what I mean.
That was understood with my initial question, Amrita. That was understood.
I know. I just want to make it very clear for like people who are like listening, because just if anybody's under any kind of misapprehension, like I just need you to understand.
No, Amrita applies makeup saying Lali Kajal powder bindiya.
Who's the music director? Anu Malik, right?
Nadeem
Shravan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I had to look that up because I forgot completely.
And also, it was a big deal for them because until then, Subhash Ghai had only collaborated with Lakshmikant Pyarelal, and Nadeem Shravan were trying to, steer their way into the big league, and this was their big league move.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also, was this their last big album before they got sent to Dubai?
No, I don't think so. I think they
did Raz, right? I think Raz was the last one before Nadeem had to move out or something like that. I can't remember.
But was Raz not done on Skype? Like, isn't that not how they did that movie?
Yeah.
So when I was little, I think Nahi Hona Tha was when I was little, it seems. When I watched it for the first time, I think Nahi Hona Tha was that was my jam. I thought that everything about it was really fun to me for some reason. I was a very melodramatic teen, so I was yes, this is it.
Have you changed since?
A little bit. Yeah, so I think Do Dil Mil Rahe Hain, I think, was the one that I liked this time around.
Yeah, that was really...
This is
I think the build-up to Do Dil Mil Rahe Hain is also very fun because Rajiv asked Ganga out to the gates and Imani Shivpuri just goes bananas.
The whole freaking house is on fire then.
खेतों के पीछे windmill के नीचे.
I think this is generally a good movie for emo kids. This is a very emo movie in general. And also Subhash Ghai always had a good ear for music. Even if you go to Yuvraj, that album is still good.
Oh, that album was, amazing.
Yeah. And then you watch the clip and Salman is floating in the air. And you're what is this? A.R. Rahman, what did they do to your music? Insane.
Well, I think Subhash Ghai opened that acid cabinet and Salman, tu ud.
I think I had read somewhere that actually for Pardes he wanted A.R. Rahman, but at the time the budget didn't allow for him to hire. So A.R. Rahman was always at the back, in the back mind of Subhash Ghai to use at some point. So finally with Yuvraj it happened.
No, it happened with
he
Tal
had
as well.
Tal.
Tal, I forgot Tal. Yeah, so the next movie, I guess.
But also his collaboration with A.R. Rahman is so weird because he's very old school music director, right? Like he's like one of those guys that like sits down with his directors and like he likes to go like wah 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 like to like the tune and like feel like he's contributing to the process. Whereas that's not how Rahman does it. Rahman is like, what's the brief? Okay, let me think about it and like do something and then I'll get back to you when I have something. So he, like, I remember like after Tal came out, and bear in mind like Tal was like a huge success, like everybody was raving about that soundtrack, and people were asking Subhash Ghai about it, and he was like, I don't understand his process. Like, I flew down to Chennai to like speak to him about it, and then he didn't see me, and then like at night he would stay up after I had left and like compose the music, and then he just handed me this soundtrack. So and I think he kind of like, I don't think he connected to the music that much, you know, like I feel like so it always surprises me that he repeats Rahman so much in his, but I think he does it for the kids, you know, like he's connecting to the youth culture by putting in.
No, so here's what I've heard about the difference in their process. Like Rahman composes first, and then like he would bring in the lyrics writers to write. So Prasun Joshi or Anand Bakshi or even Mehboob for Rangila. So he composed the tune first, and then the lyrics had to fit, and then the singers would be brought in to sing the first demo scratch. And then he would embellish it with his production, and that's, so he's completely inverts the process, and it's completely different from how Nadeem Shravan or Anu Malik compose. So I guess that's what makes Subhash Ghai just lose his mind. You know, what the fuck is even happening here?
No, but
that's probably why he like Gulzar does such a good job with Rahman, because Gulzar is also like, he leads with the sound, you know, a lot of his poetry leads with the sound. So I think that way the two of them are like on the same page. And so like Gulzar is able to like make poetry out of sounds, whereas like in the traditional sense, you know, you look at the, because I understand why Rahman does it that way, because he's not a Hindi speaker, so he doesn't understand. Like you could go to him with like all the poetry you want, but he'd be like, what is this? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. But
Asim, you were saying.
No, I was saying that I think this is the reason why we didn't immediately think that Nadeem Shravan did this soundtrack, because I think I've mentioned this before. When A.R. Rahman came to the scene, it shook up all other music directors, right? And they just immediately wanted to copy his sound or influences. And I think even in this soundtrack, it already has some A.R. influences, and it doesn't sound like a Nadeem Shravan soundtrack. And I think that's
like
why
he brought in Chitra to sing Jaha Piya Wahan Mein, right? That's a big inspiration.
And that's why, like, even Ye Dil, like, it is a very kind of like Mukabla kind of like sound to it, right? Like they're always making,
and with the Hima Sardesai in the background, right? Like that also is not a typical like Nadeem Shravan.
So and that's why we couldn't think of it.
And Nadeem Shravan in particular, like really, really jealous of Rahman, you know, like they went around for years saying that he's not an actual composer, he's just a music arranger, like, you know, they used to say all these things about him all the time, which is really funny because of all the fricked up like shit that they used to do. Anyway.
But I mean, the most Nadeem Shravan song in this whole album is Zara Tasveer Se Tu, I think. And
And it does make you kind of think of that like 90s era of Bollywood, right? Like, you know, I've got my little daughter, so we randomly watch some, you know, songs that we can, you know, sing and dance on. So suddenly we had Dard Karara from Dam Laga Ke Haisha. And that is like very much like a Nadeem Shravan type song, right? That's what I think of when I, you know, and that's what also it feels like a bygone era already, and I think the train has already left the station for Nadeem Shravan, and you know, A.R. Rahman was driving that train, and I think I mean, like I'm saying, this is the year also the Gupt soundtrack came out, right? So put Gupt Gupt next to Zara Tasveer Se, it seems like a totally different era. And I think it already here it's like, wo purane zamane ke gaane achhe hote the. And I think that's what, Zara Tasveer Se is bringing to this. And probably also why Subhash Ghai is more comfortable, it feels, in that in shooting that song or kind of making that song, because he's making Shahrukh be very like those very close-ups of his face or his eyes is all very like, very Subhash Ghai, especially that stupid hat is very Subhash Ghai. I also like when you were saying, what does Subhash Ghai, this is him trying to be cool with the kids. The only reference this movie has is Michael Jackson. Like there's like 7 times something about Michael Jackson.
A couple of times, yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what the kids listen to, right? Michael Jackson.
Do you know how Subhash Ghai this film is? The main character, Arjun, wants to go back to Mathura to open a music school.
I do have like one compliment for this movie, and that is cinematography. Like it's obviously I saw it on YouTube and I saw it in passing. So
how the cinematographer wanted you to review this movie, right?
I know. The best possible version on my laptop, while being fast forwarded on YouTube. So, but I have to say, like, even then, this is probably one of the best Bollywood visual representations of the United States, or maybe like North America, as Nim was saying, like it's considerable part of it.
Vancouver.
Yeah, in Vancouver. But that that shot of Shahrukh in Ye Dil, where he's like driving that car through. Is it supposed to be Nevada? Like, is that also Canada, or is it?
No. So there's a couple of sequences. Like the Vegas one actually did happen in Vegas, and there's a Hollywood sequence as well.
Okay.
Those actually were filmed there, and I think the desert stuff was probably filmed in Nevada at the time, because we don't have desert here. So.
Okay. So that particular, like, I remember watching it when it came out, and I remember that song, and I remember looking at it and being like, that is just an impossibly beautiful sequence, that whole desert sequence. And then when I went in real life, and it was like the sky and the earth actually did look like it. You have this, I can't explain. I always tell people, that I can't explain what the sky looks like in North America. Like, you have to go there to like understand what the horizon looks like, because it looks unlike any other part in the world. And the movie does like a really good job of conveying that, and it's really beautiful, and that is something that hasn't changed in like the 20 odd years since that movie's come out.
I think the sky looks different because there's more freedom in the sky there, so it just the blue is bluer, the green is greener.
आसमान है.
Yeah.
Yes,
the
It's
color
all great
is
again.
Yeah,
it's very great again.
It's the Instagram filter of freedom. That's what it is. Nim, sorry, you were saying something.
No. It's just generally, it's like here in North America. I mean, especially in Canada, more so even in the States. I come to like Edmonton, like, you'll get the prairie lands where the horizon does go on forever. Like there's like so much space, and so like that whole North America aspect, they did do a really good job of showcasing it. So that's why I have to shout out to my Vancouverites, because it's he showed it really pretty. I just wish they would have said it was Vancouver instead of Hollywood, which wouldn't have confused half the people later on.
I also like the shot where in Do Dil Mil Rahe Hain, how he's kind of there's like a lot of movement with the camera, and how he's like framing Shahrukh in that moment, and like Shahrukh is with the guitar and he's kind of looking around with his eyes, which Shahrukh does really well, and that's also kind of a beautiful shot. And Shahrukh, like, we haven't talked about Shahrukh too much yet.
I know.
Like, because in a way, this is a very, very Shahrukh movie. Like, a lot of, like, how we think of Shahrukh, the golden era of Shahrukh, that's a lot of it. It also has a lot of like bloody Shahrukh, which a lot of people like. It also has a very Raj, subservient, nice guy, and he's not going to be like an alpha male kind of thing. But when he needs to kabaddi, he's going to kabaddi, you know. So it's a very kind of like Shahrukh movie, and he also looks
really kabaddi like in slow motion, like
hey kabaddi kya, hey kabaddi, kabaddi.
Oh god.
Also, he wears a lot of Henleys in this movie. Like this whole wardrobe is like Nehru collars and
with
Henleys.
really oversized shirts from Timothy.
Shirts,
Yeah. Oh god.
Suspenders too. Lots of suspenders.
What did you think of Shahrukh in this, Nim?
I mean, like you said, he was like kind of that, like, you know, super nice guy, super like, you know, wants to be your best friend type of person. But honestly, I didn't like, not until the end does he really kind of step up to the plate to be like the main hero in a sense. Like before then, he's always like, he's trying to just be like, you know, the really nice guy, supporting you, telling you all the good things that you need to hear and all that stuff. But one thing I will say is I think that this film was filmed in a couple of different like kind of periods or sequences, because his hair does change quite a bit at times. His hair is quite short in Do Dil Mil Rahe Hain, and then it turns longer again later on, and so that kind of threw me off a little bit at times. So, but it was quintessential Shah Rukh Khan. But I will say, like, didn't feel like this movie was, you know, kind of his, like, you know, him being right at the forefront of it. I felt it was like at times he was almost second to Mahima's character, and so I think Subhash really wanted like that whole focus on the female aspect of the woman being like, you know, knowing when to like step up and defend herself and all that stuff.
If I remember correctly, like there was that's part of the reason why Shahrukh and Subhash Ghai fell out either during this movie or after. I think
so, yeah. I remember hearing about that, because he didn't feel like it was as much of him being like the hero, and that Mahima got more out of it than he did.
Yeah.
But he does feel checked out a few times in this movie too. Like it's like you can see when Shah Rukh is fully committed, and I think here there's a few moments, especially in America. I feel he feels a bit checked out. I think also probably there's a lot of scenes of America that were shot in India, like that club scene where like, you know, Mahima is like in full Desi garb, and what is this club where they're also doing like musical chairs and things like that?
What was this? I was like, I've never seen that at a club here.
Yeah. So
I've never seen that at a club anywhere. Like, I've been to clubs on like 3 different continents. I've never seen anything like that.
So this is where Subhash Ghai goes, the thing about youth culture is I don't get it. You know?
It almost feels like what people used to do, like in that Qayamat se Qayamat tak era, you know, when like Qayamat tak Qayamat is like young kids, you know, that kind of thing. That, but like in America. It's confusing, if I can say so. But there's certain, like, in terms of Shah Rukh also, it's weird because sometimes he's like a borderline human trafficker. Like the way he's like just flat out lying, like he's almost like
lying,
in Daler Mehndi territory. Like that's how far he is. Because he's like just flat out, you know, and also like it's also just like an era thing, like, you know, like cigarette smoking and like drinking, and like also like all of the Gores have never seen like an Indian person ever in their while. They like start sexually assaulting her immediately, you know, like
on me.
Sorry.
No, it was the whole, like, even like the dockyard party, the sequence where they're like celebrating. I was just like, why are you showing us being so like lecherous? And like people here aren't that like bad, really.
Yeah, that scene was really,
that
really
NRI
bad.
Punjabi thought.
It's not. I'm Punjabi. I've not seen that here.
What's funny is that, but it feeds into this thing, like Ganga is our symbol of purity. She's it's this very patriarchal thing, like ghar ki izzat, and
that's
then
what I'm
Pardes
saying.
gayi,
And then, like, Alok Nath just barges in with his talwar.
Oh, God. That scene.
Where the fuck did that come from?
All
Why
of the
does he
scenes
have
with
a talwar?
Alok Nath are creepy now. Like watching him with Ganga, I just feel it's so creepy. I had real trouble watching it.
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like the whole rewatch was so problematic with all the new context that we have. It was like A, super patriarchal, B, Alok Nath, and then it was just her being this super naive, itna sake, I don't know if we talked about this yet, but one of the most cringe moments I had in this movie was when, when she is singing on stage and then all of a sudden Arjun comes and she jumps off stage to go run to talk to him. I was like, no one in their right mind would ever do that in reality. I was like, what was the point of that?
Yeah. And
there's a lot of problems.
That was a moment where I was team mean auntie, because there's a mean auntie in that movie too, right?
Yeah,
and a lot of times I found myself agreeing with mean auntie. I was like, this is shady shit, man. Why is Ganga leaving everybody to go, say hi to Arjun? This is not kosher.
But also mean auntie says stuff like girlfriends ka aana jana to ameeron ki shaan hoti hai.
I low-key felt like maybe Auntie was going through the same thing and that's why she was the way she was.
No, but this movie does in a very ham-handed and sort of tangential kind of way. It is based on something that is pertinent to the Desi community at large, which is that you have all these people who migrated to the West, and then all of a sudden, their kids grow up and they're like, oh, but we don't want our sons to marry these hoes out here. So we need to get some untouched mal from the base, basically. And so we're just going to export these, gaon ki ladkiyan who know how to make rotis at home. And then those girls come and, their families are obviously really happy to have them marry, these
to
Videshi.
NRIs,
Yeah. And then they come there and there's a huge cultural, difference, and they have to, and they're isolated because, they probably don't speak the language. They don't know how to, what's the cultural norms, what's expected of them. And then the family expects them to be super conservative. So it's not like they're getting any freedoms. So these are actual issues in the Desi community at large. The only thing is this movie just does the worst job possible to address any of these issues.
This movie brings a talwar to the club. That's what it does. I do think things have shifted slightly in the 20 years this movie has made. I think maybe this is my perspective. I don't know, maybe Nim, you agree, don't agree, but I do think there's been a bit more of an understanding from both sides that if you just send your daughters there, that idea of foreign country, I think, has lessened, also because of America being shit for so long. And I think the other way is also, I think there's a bit more of an understanding that importing people, be it male or female, it happens the other side too, daughters getting married over by a guy that's been total gaon ka dude, and bringing that over. And I think there's a bit of an understanding that Kuljite that doesn't work. At least that's how I'm seeing it. I'm sure there's still enough horror stories out there, and I'm sure there's also some success stories out there too. But I do think things have shifted slightly. I don't know, Nim, do you agree with that or not? Or is that just maybe
I do
my
agree
bias?
that the whole NRI view has shifted. And I also do think that they also realize that, there are quite a lot of NRIs here that do understand the cultural differences and the cultural aspects. I like to consider myself a really nice blend of my East and West. I'm not the crazy woman here going out drinking every weekend or whatever. But, there's a balance to us in a sense. And I think that does showcase a lot better these days than what it did in the past. There was definitely a misconception that NRIs are all just, the kids are wild, spoiled, and doing crazy things every weekend.
Yeah, but some of us are.
And it's funny
Dehradun are no
because-
longer like Ganga either.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think like it's also like, you know, when DDLJ came out, like it was trying to address exactly that kind of stuff, Nem, like, you know, like stuff that you saw in, say, Puraba Paschim and stuff like that, where everyone's wearing a blonde wig and like drunk off their tits all the time. And then DDLJ like really like redeemed the NRI, and then this movie comes along and you're like,
And then it just regressed again.
oh, what the hell?
And this, I think there's also like a class issue here, right? Like if you are marrying like a super rich person from India with a rich person from America, there's not that much of a difference. But here they're like still making cow patties with their hands, and they're like, I loved it. Like Amrish Puri is like meeting Alok Nath. Alok Nath like, बच्चे पागल हो गए तेरा इंतजार कर करके, like you know, सर में से बाल निकाल रहे हैं, पागल हो गए, you know, like and he comes in and like nobody's ready for him. Like everybody's like, तू कहाँ से आ गया, बताया भी नहीं. Like they're making cow patties. They're like she's like Himani Shivpuri has no
dupatta.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, whoever watched it in the theaters, did you guys have a moment where, you know, there's two parts in two different songs. One was in I Love My India at the end when Hariharan goes and does that big A at the end that super went like, you know, high, that people laughed at the theater that I was at. And then the second part was in Nahi Hona Tha, where, you know, there's that break and Shahrukh's kind of getting like beaten up, and then all of a sudden like they jump up out of nowhere and they're like Nahi Hona Tha, Nahi Hona Tha. And again, people laughed. And I was like, did nobody realize when they were like editing this that, you know, there's going to be parts where people are kind of questioning, what are you doing here?
No, the 90s Bollywood audience wasn't that intelligent, to be fair.
Because I flat out remember, like, that was one of the two moments where the entire theater at our place was just like, what is going on here? So clearly there was an NRI disconnect at that point.
I think this movie wants to get the money of the NRIs, but it doesn't really respect them or understand them, and it's really catered to a very local Indian Desi audience. So I think that's where the disconnect is happening. And you can really also see the stylistic differences between what Subhash Ghai thinks is cool and then what Karan Johar or Aditya Chopra thought was cool. You know, compare this with Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, right? Where it's
or even Dil To Pagal Hai.
Yeah.
Because that was in the same year, and there's such a difference in the actual, like, you know, when you look at the two movies side by side, the style and the actual like, you know, the look of it. Like this movie Pardes has a dated look to it, whereas Dil To Pagal Hai still could kind of fit in whereabouts we're at right now.
One thing I would like to bring up is in Ye Dil, at the end when Shahrukh dances with his clones, and then in Yaade, Jab Dil Mile, Hrithik dances with his clones. I think Subhash Ghai does have a thing.
I think he has lots of things. Subhash Ghai has lots of things.
I think he predicted TikTok.
Also, just the romance between Mahima and Shahrukh is really, really weird. It's, I think, Nim, you were mentioning, right? When did they ever fall in love?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also just like Shahrukh has like a kind of this poetic idea of this Maya, this dream girl that he also has in Dil To Pagal Hai. But that person is then Mahima. I don't understand where that transition really happened.
Especially with the whole like the model, right? Like that, like the mannequin that he has, like, and then all of a sudden you see that jhalak of like Mahima. I was like, how did this, you know, like I thought they were just friends. And they're just like, and he kept on like the way he was always like, oh, like, you know, tum Rajiv ki amanat ho, and like, you know, you need to adjust to Rajiv's life. Like he was constantly being like, you are meant to be with Rajiv. So at what point did he, and what was it? The guy Pavan Malhotra who's in it, who plays his
he
friend.
gives him a cheap therapy session.
And he was like, oh my God, you're in love with her. And I was like, when did this happen? Like, and it felt like more it was the idea put in by Pavan.
Just because she gave him some parathas.
Yeah. Or she came to like wish him happy birthday when he wanted to be left alone.
Amrita, this should be the moment where you do Manish Bale's speech from Maine Pyar Kiya.
धड़कती रातों की भड़कती हुई.
एक लड़का एक लड़की कभी दोस्त नहीं हो सकते. That kind of thing. Yeah, it's weird. I think, and it's again forcing that Bollywood convention in there where they have to end up together. But I don't know. I feel I would have just respected the movie more if Shahrukh had just stood up for Mahima for being, I don't want to be your human trafficker anymore, right? Like, Kishori Lal, you're an asshole, and also stop treating me like the help if you treat me like a son. And I think that would have been enough for me, right? Like, I don't understand why. Like, and also like, what is it with Shahrukh and Amrish Puri together that they play a lot of switcheroo with photos when it's about arranged marriages? Because we saw this in Koila too. Like, clearly it goes much better for Mahima than it did for Madhuri. But still, like, agree, like, right on the back of the photo, like, who the person
Names.
is. That, like, people could do that.
But shout out to like Dadima for like totally scolding Kishori Lal for like, oh, you want all the sanskars, but all of that. Dina Pathak.
Yeah, she did a great job at the end. Dadi stood up for womanhood there.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't think Rajiv is that bad of a guy, like, except the rape. Like, obviously, like, okay, there he went full on debut from America. But for the rest, I don't know. I don't, like, he seems like, okay, like, he's a bad dancer. He has terrible hair. But the rest, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I've seen worse. I've done worse, like.
Yeah, it's a very judgy kind of like, cigarette phoonta hai, sharab pita hai kind of a thing where it's like, like what do you expect him to do? He's like a rich young man in Hollywood. Like, ghar jaake puja thodi na karega. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, and vaping technology does not exist, people. Like, I'm sure Rajiv would have shifted over to vaping by now, right?
To vaping.
Yeah, I don't know. I
think like and also like, like here's a guy who's like born and raised in LA, and then suddenly his dad is like, you know what you need in life? You need an 18-year-old from like a village in India. That's gonna like fix your life. I'm like,
do you guys remember the scene with the cobra? Because I totally forgot about that scene until it came back. And I was like, where did this come from? Like, I get that, you'll get the snakes.
Yeah, that's like Amrish Puri, like, or Subhash Ghai making a point that, you need the Ganga in your life to hold you together.
Pray the snake away.
To protect you from the snakes.
To pray the snake away.
By the way, also because I'm a germaphobe, when a snake is on your bed, do you need to change the bed sheet afterwards? Because that seems like a slimy kind of situation. Right.
Yeah,
right,
I would.
Okay.
It's not slimy. I mean, snakes are dry. Right? It's not slimy, but still, they'll still have stuff on it. So I would still, wash it.
I mean,
there's on the ground.
There's that lube around them, no? Like there's a whole lube.
No. Have you not ever touched a snake? Have you ever touched a snake?
Nim, you're opening me up for a joke which I do not want to make. It's Eid.
I thought of the same thing and I was like, I will not make that joke.
It's a holy day, Nim. It's a holy day.
I'm just saying, like, growing up here, like in our like grade 4 classroom, we had different animals as pets and that, and we had a garter snake actually, and so we got to handle it, and they're not slimy. Snakes are not slimy.
I don't know about your corrupt NRI lifestyles. Cigarette phonkna, drinking karna, snaking ko touching karna. What is this?
Like Anila would say, parvarish achhi nahi hui hai.
I stepped into that one, I admit it.
Well, I do think like an essential part of being Indian is having some latent snake charming powers. I think that is part of how the Ganga flows, Oh God.
The such the scene where Shahrukh Khan is like basically saying like sach ko sunne ke liye bahut, like, you know, what was the exact words, like bahut bada jigar lagta hai or whatever. I forgot that scene was actually from this movie. Like that's in one of those scenes where I remember Shahrukh Khan having, but yeah, that was from this movie, and that's like a typical, like, you know, Shahrukh Khan making his big, like, you know, climax lecture of what is the truth and how you have to like handle it and all that stuff. So that was like when Shahrukh Khan fully appeared on screen. But again, his hair had changed from what it was previously.
Yeah. That's because he went to a Dehradun hairstylist, and otherwise he's like a Las Vegas stylist, so it changes, na. But also, like, I just found it funny. Are Rajiv and Arjun actually friends? Like, they don't act like friends at all. Like,
no, but because the thing is, they consider Arjun to be like the helper, remember? So like even Rajiv has that thing. It's only Kishori Lal that sometimes when he feels like Dayalu, he's like beta, and then otherwise it's like, oh, like he just looks after our garage and our cars. That's it.
Yeah, he's an asshole, man. Kishori Lal is basically emotional abuser. That's what he is. Nim, this was so much fun. Where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Maple Brownie, and pretty much anywhere else where you need a handle. That is my online social media presence.
And I'm really enjoying all your COVID cooking posts.
Oh, thanks.
That's really cool.
Although I'm not doing as much because now I am back at work, so it's not as much. But I am trying to hopefully come up with something to do on the side to kind of alleviate that need of people seeing me on Instagram. So we'll figure something out. But definitely, if you guys are interested, everyone out there listening in, cooking and that sort of stuff, I have a couple of highlights still posted from my experimental days of quarantine.
See, this is what NRIs are actually doing. They're at home cooking food. Yeah. And that's not like what Subhash Ghai is posting on.
Dahi ke kebabs.
Yeah, touching snakes and shit. So, Joy, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at 93K.
Amrita?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ, and I'm posting new content on YouTube every Thursday at Amrita by the Book, with the occasional new video coming out on Tuesdays as well. And this Tuesday, I have a book to film adaptation piece that's going to come out, so you should come to that.
Yes, and we really appreciate when the Khandaan audience, you know, cross-pollinates into Amrita by the Book. So if you are going from Khandaan, to leave a comment and let her know where you got it from, because I really appreciate it. And then I'm also going to share your little ad you made, because that's so cool.
A couple of people have found me through the podcast, and I got such a kick out of it. Like, it was really fun to see people from here and then on the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. Although I do feel it's like people is like, you know, we were basically listening to Khandaan for Amrita anyway. We can get like a version where these other two idiots are not there.
No, like my channel isn't half as fun without these two. So, you know.
Oh, Amrita.
Okay. Well, you can find us at upodcasting or khandanpodcast.com. You can drop us an email at upodcasting@gmail.com, or you can drop us a review on Apple Podcast, which I always get a real kick out of, and I appreciate it even if, you know, somebody's pulling my leg, which I think the last few podcast reviews have done, which I really thought was really fun. It feels like family, right? Like when, you know, we're making fun of our listeners and they're making fun of us. This is what the wholesome Desi family is all about, you know. If we're not low-key insulting each other, how are we a family, right? So anyway, for everybody listening, thank you again. And Eid Mubarak again. And yeah, thanks for sticking with us. We'll be back soon.
Girl, you're much